This is Dream Power Radio, the place where your dreams turn into reality. Here is your host, Debbie Spector-Weissman.
Hello, 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 and welcome to Dream Power Radio on the amazing Women and Men of Power Network, the world's leading positive programming network powered by Raven International. I'm your host, Debbie Spector-Weissman, the Dream Coach. This is the show where we talk about dreams, both daytime and nighttime dreams, and how you can use them to make the internal shift to a life you love. And as a reminder, I'm here to help you understand your dreams. So if you have a dream that's got you stumped, email me at debbie@dreampowerradio.com. I can help you interpret your dream or answer any general questions you may have about dreams. So again, my email is debbie@dreampowerradio.com. One of the most distressing and undertreated issues affecting our country is mental illness. According to some reports, over 44 million Americans experience a mental disturbance in any given year, and a shocking 1 out of 10 live with a chronic, serious mental condition. One of these people is my guest, Nisa Sunar. Nisa is a peer specialist who works at a New York City housing agency, and she has been open about her affliction, schizoaffective disorder. Not being one to use this illness as an excuse to stay in the shadows, she's an advocate for those suffering from mental issues, running an online support group, and writing extensively on the subject. Welcome to Dream Power Radio, Nisa.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Nisa, as I said, you're someone who works full-time and is also in the process of finishing up an advanced college degree, while also having what some would call a disability. Could you talk about your illness, how it affects you, and how you live with it?
Yeah, I mean, that whole question is like a timeline from start to finish almost. I started experiencing depression at a very young age, and started medications after having been in therapy for like 3 years. Before that, I was 14 when I started medications for depression, and that like stabilized me. So I was able to finish high school. Then I went to college. I studied classical viola performance at a conservatory, and I was keeping up, but still isolated socially. And then when I started grad school, I developed schizoaffective disorder. So basically a schizophrenia component to what I already had. And that destroyed the livelihood I had had before as a musician, trying to go back to school to be a music teacher. That didn't work out. Repeated relapses, even though I was taking medications and doing everything I'm supposed to do as a patient. I think the base of what helps me stay well now is medication. Finally, after 15 years of being in the psychiatric system, I'm on medications that work. And then from there, that has given me the foundation now to build on. And I've built on it a career in mental health. I got training to become a peer specialist. A peer specialist is a person with lived experience utilizing psychiatric services who then publicly discloses to others on their job, within a mental health service delivery system. For me, it's a housing agency where I work. And I've just built on top of it. And I'm just grateful things haven't fallen apart. They just keep growing and accelerating. And it's like, oh, this is what life is supposed to feel like. It's not supposed to feel like, being dragged down, because that's all I knew, really. Yeah, so that's just, I think what helps me keep going is the medication, but not just that, also peer support, learning about peer specialists, connecting with other peers online, sharing the mission as I know it, and learning from others about peer work and advocacy.
Okay, well, Nisa, you kind of had a double dose. I mean, first, when you said 14, I guess you got diagnosed with depression. And then later on, you developed this other affliction. How did you feel upon getting these diagnoses? I mean, how did it make you feel?
When I was diagnosed with depression formally as a teenager, it actually kind of felt good because it was a validation that what I was experiencing wasn't just me at my own fault. It was something that I deal with. And I did buy into the medical model system of diagnosis and chemical imbalance in the brain. I still, feel that medication really helps me. I can't live without it. So in that first stage of my life, I felt like it was freeing because it gave a name to what I was experiencing. With the schizophrenia, that really debilitated my life. And at that point, I felt cursed because I wanted to do well. I had a lot of motivation and aspirations to do well professionally. But when I tried to take on tasks and work hard, my brain would not cooperate. It was like the ground would fall from beneath my feet. It really did feel like a spiritual affliction. It felt like being cursed or damned. And there was no answer as to why. So then I thought I was a demon or something, things like this.
So how did you cope with that?
I don't know if I did. I didn't work. It's a timeline really. I mean, I was diagnosed with the schizoaffective disorder at the end of 2007, and I had to drop out of grad school. I tried to go back to school in 2009, had to drop out in 2010. And then at that point, I really could not work. So I went on disability. And when I went on disability, I started going to a lot of open mic nights in Manhattan and Brooklyn. And I wrote songs to perform at these open mic nights. So that's kind of what occupied my time during that period of time when I wasn't working or in school. And that helped me cope somewhat. I still felt flat emotionally and disconnected to the people around me, but I really pushed myself to learn that skill of songwriting and just to go out there. Even if I felt horrible, I was still putting myself out there.
But you got to the point where this was something that you wanted to pursue as a career, but your illness didn't allow you to do that. Is that right?
Yeah. I mean, classical music is a whole beast of its own. I still haven't figured out why I have the viola, classical music. I like listening to it, but for me to live that lifestyle and just play music all the time and listen to music all the time, for some reason, it triggers me. I don't know why. I think maybe just the loud noise can be jarring to me. I know music is very therapeutic for a lot of people, but for me, I can only have it in small doses. And I feel like my battle with music is like the final frontier, because music entered my life very early on. I was 5 years old when I started playing the violin. And that was the first thing that got affected when I developed that depression. I started hating the instrument because, you're a perfectionist, you want to play well, and studying classical music it's a real head trip because you're aiming for perfection. That's obviously not possible yet. That's what you have to achieve to, do the music justice. And it's also very technically challenging. So that just made things a lot stormier.
So is your illness what prompted you to decide to help others with mental illnesses?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it got to the point where every aspect of my life had been either a part of the mental illness experience or otherwise affected by mental illness. I mean, day-to-day living, the way I perceive the world around me, that's influenced by the condition. And the reason why I've had losses in life, why I've had some professional failures in my life, why I've had some financial failures where I impulsively spent money, that was explained. The easiest way to explain it is that I was unwell. And it got to a certain point where it's like, I wanted to be a music teacher. And I had a breakdown while I was in school getting that certification. And when I wanted to go back, there was a lot of resistance to me returning. And then somebody asked me, who I know very well, and she's very nice. She's like, are you safe around children? And it's like, I couldn't imagine myself living this sort of life where I had to pretend it didn't exist, because it's influenced who I am, what I've been through, and the wisdom and the lessons I've learned in life are due to mental illness. So for me to have to deny that experience that I've had would severely diminish my personal sense of freedom and the right to express that.
Okay, so go back a second, because you said you learned lessons from the illness. What kind of lessons have you learned?
Definitely lessons in disappointment, lessons in terms of trying your hardest and it's still not enough, and dealing with that disappointment. It's a very humbling experience. It's a very devastating experience. Yeah, and then also the triumphs. Now that I'm doing well, I know that there is light at the end of the tunnel. So when I see people that are struggling, I can say, you know what, I've been there. I've been through what you are experiencing, or at least I can understand through my own experiences, and I can tell you that that's not all there is. There's recovery, and that's the crux of peer work. That's why peer work is so powerful, because I now can use these experiences I've had as wisdom to help other people. So I don't have to be ashamed of all that stuff anymore. Now it becomes my work.
Okay, so let's talk a bit more about what it means to be a peer specialist. Could you explain, on a day-to-day basis, what that entails?
It's different. I mean, different days I do different things. I think definitely, I talk to peer specialists from different states and also within the New York City community, very much through social media. What I do a lot of like community integration. It can be very basic stuff, visiting somebody at their house and helping them put together a RAP plan, wellness recovery action plan. It's basically like an advanced directive crisis plan and a plan for wellness. I know I'm using all these terms, but basically visiting somebody at their house and helping them put together an advanced directive plan plus wellness plan. I do a lot of community integration. I don't drive a car because I don't feel safe driving a car. I get very sedated. So what I do is I visit people at their homes and I will escort them on appointments to various offices. A lot of times, like somebody needs to replace their food stamps card. So I'll go with them to the place where they have to go and just, support them in getting that piece of documentation. Like a lot of times, like just interacting with these offices, trying to get benefits, recertify benefits, replace lost documents. There's a lot of like paperwork that's required, and even just getting to the place and getting back, it can be an overwhelming experience. So like I'll meet a person at their home and then we'll take public transit to the office, and then I'll advocate on their behalf. Like, they'll send this document. You have to say certain things to the person, and I just kind of support them in that process so that they don't feel overwhelmed. I also do just travel training in general, teaching people how to use the bus. And then when I'm using the bus with people, I'll just engage them in casual conversation, like asking, hey, how are you doing? What did you do last weekend? What are you looking forward to? It's like very basic day-to-day conversation. And I think the most important part about peer work is to establish the relationship with the person. I've been working at my current place of work almost 5 years full-time now. And it's really nice to see how the relationships I've had with the people I work with, how those have grown. Definitely, in this field, there's turnover with case managers and that sort of thing. So, to work with people who I've known for almost 5 years now, they know that I was not just a flash in the pan. Like I'm here, I was here to stay. I still am here to stay, and I'm willing to get to know them. So that's, yeah.
Okay, so what sort of mental issues are these people grappling with?
I think they're all different sorts of things. There's like some schizophrenia, bipolar, depression, not as much without being combined with something else. I actually don't even look at diagnoses so much in the work that I'm doing. Like I work for a recovery-oriented organization mostly. They want to really embrace recovery-oriented mindsets in terms of how they deal with people. So we don't really look at a person's diagnosis as determining how we work with people. We just say, okay, well, you're in front of me and I see you and you're saying this to me. It's more like person-centered as opposed to like seeing a person as a diagnosis. That's another principle of peer work.
So you're looking at the person as a person and not just what they're dealing with.
Yeah. I mean, knowing a person's diagnosis can be helpful in knowing what they're dealing with, like exactly what you're saying, but it doesn't define who they are, and it doesn't necessarily imply what they need in that moment.
Okay, we're going to take a short break here. We're talking with mental health advocate Nisa Sunar on Dream Power Radio, and we'll be right back. What do Thomas Jefferson, Elias Howe, and Paul McCartney have in common? They all understood the value of dreams, and as a result, the ideas, inventions, and creations from their dreams affect us to this day. What great ideas are you leaving on your pillow at night? Sign up for a complimentary consultation at my website, thedreamcoach.net, and discover why your dreams are a terrible thing to waste.
Welcome back to Dream Power Radio with your host, Debbie Spector-Weissman.
Yes, and welcome back to Dream Power Radio. I'm your host, Debbie Spector-Weissman, and we're talking with Nisa Sunar about mental health. Nisa, you are about to receive a degree to become a licensed clinician. What do you hope to achieve in this field?
As a social worker, I don't know. I'm very dedicated to continuing to create awareness about the work of peer specialists, the way that peer work transforms the lives of both the peer specialists themselves and the people they're working with. The term peer overall means anyone who chooses to identify as such, a person who's utilized mental health experiences, and so forth. As a social worker, I guess I would like to do clinical work, but at the same time, what I really want to do is write. I love writing. I'm actually working on a zine right now, like a small little pamphlet publication type thing. That's going to be about peer specialists and the work they do. I feel like there's such a deficit in terms of peer specialists and awareness of what they do. Nobody knows about them. I didn't learn about peer work until I had already been in that system for like 15 years. And I live in New York City. This is not good. Peers really transform the lives of one another. And it's a totally different rhetoric, the recovery model, totally different from the medical model that predominates. I feel that there needs to be awareness about peer specialists. There needs to be funding allocated to the creation and maintenance of peer specialist programs, peer-run programs like respites and things like that. As a social worker, I want to just make my voice louder. And I feel like the path will kind of carve itself out as I go from day to day, week to week, holding on to this mission.
Mm-hmm. Well, I have to be honest, I had never heard of peer specialists until, you brought it up.
Yeah.
So, again, it is something people just don't know about because there's so much that the general public doesn't know about mental illness and how it's being treated, or mostly how it's not being treated. And toward that end, in addition to your writing, you also run an online group. So tell me more about that. How does that work and what kind of people are involved with it?
Yeah, it's a group called What is Wellness? A Mental Health Discussion Group. And I started the group like 4.5 years ago. I was really gung-ho about starting my job as a peer specialist, and I wanted to bring it online and just kind of create awareness, talk about peer work to others. And over the last 4.5 years, we've grown to over 2,100 members. And they come from all over the States, some people abroad. Some people in the group are peers that work in different states other than New York. And the group has definitely had its stormy, tumultuous teenage phase where, it wasn't quite grounded. But I've worked really hard to make it a very grounded place where people know what to expect from the group. There's a definite culture, a vibe that comes from the group, which is facilitated pretty neatly. It's well run, I think. Me and another woman, we run it together. So yeah, I run the group basically like I'll ask a question. And what I've learned is that I've achieved mental health recovery by becoming a sort of personal philosopher type person. In times when my emotions failed me and I was not able to intuit answers to my griefs, I did intellectual inquiry, like, why are people mean to me? Well, this, that, just kind of intellectually trying to understand things. So I asked questions in the group that kind of stoked that kind of intellectual inquiry, because I think if emotions are failing us, we can rationalize through them. That's kind of what the group has become. I also talk about peer work, asking people about their ideas on peer work. It's a whole comprehensive thing.
Yeah, do you have any stories of someone or who's been helped by the group or something that has arisen as a result of their being in this group?
People in the group just feel supported. I feel like people find friendships with one another. It feels, I mean, I don't want to toot my own horn and like, I don't experience the group the way other people do, but I think a lot of feedback that I get is that it's a place where really genuine conversations happen, where people are sharing themselves, where people get kind of like insights for the day. It's funny because people tell me, oh, you're doing so much work, you're helping so much. And I'm like, but I want to do more. It's not enough, How does the group help people? I think also there are people who are in isolated little pockets here and there, like a peer specialist working in isolation in a neighborhood, and they're not getting support, or they're feeling alone in their fight for their work, and finding support in the group to validate that. I know that's like a big benefit that I've gotten from the group, as a, almost like they're teaching me. In my work as a peer specialist in New York, there are, it's not the most ideal situation. It's a great place where I work. But I work as a peer kind of in isolation. So being in the group actually helps educate me more about peer work from other members who know more than I do.
Mm-hmm. And it's also about
peers.
The value of community. When people can come together, you don't feel alone anymore.
Yeah, that's another thing. Like, I have a talent for writing, and I always say, like, I can read nonverbal communication online better than I can in person. I think that gives me skill as a moderator. So I think people like the group because it's kind of a warm, friendly place online that feels real. And I also have done that in my past. Around the time I developed schizophrenia, I started corresponding with pen pals in Germany who live in Germany, and I was practicing my German with them, and I was forging these friendships that felt like real, in-person friendships with people living in Germany. And I'm still friends with a lot of these people now. It was a skill I kind of learned in that process completely online. So I'm trying to bring that into the group as well.
I want to change the subject a little bit. It just seems that, to me, it's very unfair that people who suffer from mental illnesses are stigmatized, even though an affliction is every bit as a medical condition as someone who's got heart disease or cancer or some other kind of chronic sickness. What do you think can or should be done to erase this stigma?
I don't know. It's not something that one person can spearhead. I think fighting stigma for me means just fighting it in my own life, just seeing my immediate surroundings, the people that are around me, and then communicating who I am, what I am passionate about. When I'll go anywhere and talk about what I do professionally. And if people are afraid of me, I don't care. I go to every year there's a high school reunion, like a school alumni reunion thing, and people saying, "Oh, how are you doing?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm really good. I'm becoming a social worker and I work as a peer specialist." And I share, I just tell them straight up, like, "Hey, I have a disability. I developed schizophrenia and now I'm working to help people." And they're like, "Oh, that's really cool," or they'll say, "Oh, I didn't know that you were ill." And I just don't let it bother me in my own life. I just try and just challenge that stigma. I think if there are people out there that are being that are, prejudicial against me and what I go through, like, I'll just turn around and find somebody else to talk to. I think the overall answer to fighting stigma in mainstream culture, it definitely starts with people speaking out. I really feel that creating awareness about peer specialists would really revitalize the conversation, adding new topics to talk about peer work. And the conversation just seems stagnant. I think you have people that are very staunch in their beliefs and they're disagreeing with one another. Definitely in the peer community, and also like more radical communities, there's the belief that medical model is oppressive and people have been abused in the system. And this is very true. But there are also a lot of mental health advocates who subscribe to medical model rhetoric, the chemical imbalance in the brain discourse, supporting big pharmaceuticals, things like that. So you have a lot of people who want kind of the same thing, but they're disagreeing with one another. And that's, I think, why the conversation has not fully evolved. Or it hasn't moved in a way that it can be like a strategic chess piece that's going to further the game. It's kind of stalemate. So I just want to kind of stir the pot a bit. Peer specialists creating awareness about their work. I feel that if there was mainstream awareness about the work of peer specialists, the demand for peer work would increase, and then that would lead to more jobs, and that would also allow the mental health service delivery system to evolve from where it is now.
Well, this peer specialist work that you do is actually run through the New York City Housing Department. That's how I understand it, which is the role of government, city government. What role do you think government should play in mental illness treatment? Is doing it on the city level enough, or does it have to be on the national level, state level? What do you think about that?
It's an interesting question. I mean, with peer work, I'll start with what I know and what bells are ringing in my head, and then from there. So currently, peer programs are essentially funded by individual states. Each state has its own individual certification process, if any. Different states require different credentials, different number of supervised hours, coursework. Online modules, this whole thing. So funding comes from states. I think in New Hampshire, it's a block grant. In New York City, I don't want to spout numbers and be wrong, but I think, what was it, fiscal year 17 and 18, it was allotted to increasing the peer workforce in New York City. That funding has ended as far as I know. So I think definitely government funding has to be put into training peers. In New York City, I had free peer specialist training, and I think absolutely peer training should be free wherever you go. Other states, you have to pay for it. Some people pay over $1,000 to get all the training and certification they need, which is ridiculous because it doesn't pay. So, governments, whether it be cities or states or national, perhaps. I think state is actually good because peer communities are different depending on each state, but that's a personal opinion that could be challenged.
This is all fascinating, and I'd love to go on with you, but we are just about out of time. So if people want to know more about peer training or the peer groups, how can they find out about it?
I think the easiest way to start is joining my Facebook group. It's called What is Wellness, a mental health discussion group. That'll just connect you to me through Facebook, which is a little less personal. Not that I'm opposed to it, but it's just a good way also to meet people. My name on there is Nisa Sunshuri. It's not Nisa Sunar. It's Nisa, Neesa. Sunshuri is Suncheuri. It's my middle name. My email, it's my name. So Nisa, Neesa Sunar, Sunar @gmail.com.
Wonderful. Well, Nisa, thank you so much for being on Dream Power Radio today. We've been speaking with mental health advocate Nisa Sunar. I hope you've enjoyed today's program. Until next time, this is Debbie Spector-Weissman saying, sweet dreams, everybody.
You've been listening to Dream Power Radio with your host, Debbie Spector-Weissman. For more information on Debbie or to sign up for her newsletter, go to dreampowerradio.com. This has been Dream Power Radio on the amazing Women and Men of Power Network, the world's leading positive programming network, powered by Raven International.